Hello, everybody. Today's review is going to be of Warrior Nun, which is a show on Netflix. Again, another one from my long list that I just, never really got around to, I guess. But now that I'm going through, because I want the shows that I love, I'm going to always keep. I think I probably said that in a previous video, and then I kind of just remove the other ones that I think are like a one-time watch for me. Uh, I might go back and explore this because there was quite a bit covered as far as like religious topics go, and obviously the show was not what I was expecting at all. It looked totally different from the trailer, um, compared to what we actually got. So I was kind of just befuddled from like episode one, watching, this group of nuns with weapons like guns and some medieval weapons too, I guess, because the history goes back so far. But it was definitely an interesting show. But some of the CGI and like graphics wise for some of the creatures that they put in the show were definitely a little lacking for, I would say, for what the budget of the rest of the show seemed to be, because the like hand to hand combat scenes were always great. Now, they did touch it up, obviously, a bit graphics wise in the second season, because I believe there was 2 years between the two seasons. So I did give this show a 7 out of 10 because it did have a pretty good story, like a pretty consistent story. There were bits and pieces of it that I didn't really enjoy, like when they all got kind of separated in the second season, and I felt like they were trying to do too many storylines at once in the beginning, but then it kind of all came back together, I guess, in the end. So yeah, but there was a little bit of a lull in the show where it's kind of like they're adding almost a little bit too much to kind of make the paths eventually reconnect. So I will say the first couple episodes of the second season, I was kind of like, this is a little weak, but I mean, we're going to get to the point where there's going to be this big battle, so it'll all make sense in the end, I suppose. But yeah, we'll go over the I guess yeah, we'll go over the cast list first because there's a lot to touch on in their show. So Ava Baptista, or Elba, sorry, Elba Baptista, who played Ava. Christina Tontera Young, who played Sister Beatrice. So they were, I would say, pretty much the main two characters of the show. Uh, Lorena Andrea, who played Sister Lilith, who quite honestly was my favorite character, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I feel like she just had the most character development through the entire show, even though the main girl had quite a bit of character development in the first few episodes, but then they kind of really did start to focus on some other characters and building them quite a bit more. Tristan Philip, Eula, I think is how you say that. Played Father Vincent. Telka Rutan, who played Gillian Salvius. Olivia Delcon, who played Sister Camilla. Uh, Peter DeJersey, who played Christian Schaefer. Oh my god. Um, Sylvia De Fanti, who played Mother Superior. Jacqueline de Almeida, who played Cardinal Darity, and then eventually becomes the Pope. William Miller, who played Adriel. Tanya Turner, who played Shotgun Mary. Although I don't really remember her in the second season at all. She was more of a mainstay in the first season for sure. Mina Rayan, who played Yasmin. Richard Clothier, who played Cardinal William Foster. Jack Mead, who played Miguel or Michael. And Michael, I guess, because, yeah, he kind of has like this hidden identity. A lot of them did, obviously, but Amelia Sakaria, who played JC. Uh, Guomar Alsano, who played Ariella. Tanya Turner, who plays Shotgun Mary, and then Melina Matthews, who plays Sister Shannon. So, in the very beginning of the show, we get this. Now, I'm not sure whether she was. I guess she was being taken care of because she was paraplegic. So, she had no. After her car accident, Ava had no feeling in her legs, and I believe she had died when they were. When the I guess would it be, what is it called, the nunnery, when the nunnery was raided. Anyway, so she's resurrected after Shannon is killed, because Shannon was the current current warrior nun. So they put the halo into Ava, and she's resurrected now. Once she's resurrected, she realizes that she can walk, so and starts to kind of like develop these powers, obviously, where she can phase through things and so on and so forth. So she kind of just starts to, really want to like live her life, and then she runs into this JC character, and she kind of has like a little bit of a, kind of like on the run thing from obviously the Order, right? So, um, and then this place called Quantum Tech, who's developing this first ever portal that can be kind of like, I guess, a bridge between two worlds. Now they call it the Ark. So obviously that's like I guess that would have like religious ties to it too, wouldn't it? Because it's kind of like you're calling it like the Ark, like, so essentially kind of like what Noah did with the Ark too, um, like building into a new world where there's no pain, no disease, no so on and so forth. Now, her son, who is dying in this world, eventually goes into the other world and comes out much older. Now, I guess in this other world, time travels much differently. So, yeah, I don't really know how to explain it because for them, it's like a few days goes by, but for her son, it was like years, right? So, um, who yeah, I believe was it Jillian? That was the I'm trying to remember. It must have been. I'm trying to think of who who uh who his mother was. So Michael's mother, because Michael was the kid that went into the um portal and comes out much older. But anyway, his mother was constantly working uh at this Ark, and she was trying to find out ways to power it. So she uses Ava at one point, and then eventually it was Father Vincent, I believe, that tries to trick Ava into waking up this Adriel character. Now, Adriel has been so far up to this point been kind of like told as like this savior that ended up saving the first, I think it was the first warrior nun actually, who was, now I can't quite remember who the first warrior nun was. It was actually Ariella who was the first warrior nun. But it turns out that he had actually, I guess, stolen the halo originally, and then he had decided to put it into this Ariella character. Now, he was also, I guess, from the other world too, so he had zapped himself into this world, and then they had trapped him, and then when Ava goes into uh, his tomb to retrieve, was it, I can't remember what exactly they were trying to retrieve, but they ended up finding him, right? And then finding out that he's not a good guy at all, that he's actually part of like, now it wasn't like Satan, but like, what exactly was he supposed to be? Anyway, he wasn't an angel. I guess he was more of a devil type character. So definitely not what they were expecting, and the nuns have to try to go basically start an all-out war with Adriel. And of course, Father Vincent is now in it, and of course they had accused the cardinal of killing um, killing Shannon, and of course that wasn't the case. Now, obviously, Father Vincent was the one that was trying to frame the cardinal before he became pope, after the pope had died, and they were also trying to frame him for the murder of the pope. So it was absolutely crazy just what goes beyond, goes on behind the scenes. And then, of course, when the other cardinals decide to go in Adriel's way and they're trying to like worship him, and they're trying to use the quantum technology to create all these plagues, and it was just like, oh my god, what are they doing? And then obviously trying to draw this other woman out of the other world into their world so that Adriel can take her out with this crown of thorns, right? And it was just absolutely wild, like the whole battle just between each side was crazy. And of course, uh, Michael having all of these powers and basically being like a human bomb, because this metal that was used for all of these weapons he had inside of him, and he would basically be a bomb and just be able to end everything, right? Now, I was a little bit confused at the end when Ava was able to call uh, all of the demons that had been chasing her the entire time, and she was able to kill Adriel with them. I was kind of confused by that because I was like, how is she using her powers to draw creatures from the other that are trapped in the other world? It seemed kind of odd because I don't think they had ever touched on that in the past. Like, she was able to phase through things, she was able to fly. Um, she was also able to basically make her entire body armor, which we saw early in the first season. So she had a lot of abilities. Now, I wish they had touched on that one a little bit more because it was just seemed like that was the only time she was able to draw anything from another universe. And I don't know whether her powers were stronger when she was in that same realm um with Adriel or not. It was kind of confusing in the very last episode. Now, another thing that I will touch on is the fact that her and Beatrice seemed like they should be together for most of the show. And I'm all for, romances that we're going to show. And this one just seemed like it was one that was building up through the entire show, even when she was away, but especially after, she comes back and kind of accepts her, path as this warrior nun, and starts getting trained by Beatrice and so on and so forth. And yeah, it was just crazy to see that in the very last episode, in like probably what see, this is what I hate, because it's like they could have easily had them kiss in a less cheesy moment, like when they were on their own, kind of like in hiding and training, trying to keep their identities hidden. They could have had them kiss then, but they waited to the very last episode, right before Ava's going to battle Adriel, and then she's like, oh, I love you, and I love you too. And I'm like, seriously? You waited that long? 18 episodes before you finally go, these two should be together. We're hinting at it, we're hinting at it, we're hinting at it, and now all of a sudden, right at the very last episode when Beatrice has to make the decision to send Ava through the arc in order to save her, it's like, well, now they're separated, and Beatrice decides to leave the Order. So it was the Order of the Cruciform Sword. So Ava ends up being the one that uses that, as well as the obviously Halo for powers, right? And like I said, the Cardinal was blamed for the Pope's the Cardinal was being blamed for the Pope's death, which ended up not being true. And then they break into Adriel's tomb during the conclave, and obviously the Cardinal is elected as Pope, right? And that ends up being a good thing, because without him, a lot of stuff wouldn't have happened, but he ends up getting killed by Adriel too. So it was pretty wild, a lot of this show, for sure. Now, season 2 starts in Switzerland, and that was when she meets Michael, and so on and so forth. And then it's kind of like all of the storylines again, where I said it was a little bit split between like Spain, Portugal, the Vatican City. They were trying to do a little bit too much at the beginning of the second season. And then obviously the Crown of Thorns that can be used to down Adriel's powers. Now, I'm not sure whether it would have rendered him completely useless, but it definitely would have slowed him down enough where I think they probably could have had an easier time handling him, for sure. Now, Lilith, who was easily my favorite character in the show, she was the one that was after Ava in the very first season when Shotgun Mary was protecting her. And Shotgun Mary got her name for obviously having her two shotguns. So, kind of an ironic name, but. Or I guess you could call that kind of lazy character name, right? Just naming her Shotgun Mary because she had shotguns. And she was not part of the order. She was just there. I guess she had been there for a long time, and she had just kind of been dealing with them, so they treated her well, so she was protecting them, sort of thing. And she obviously had her problems with Lilith because Lilith didn't believe that, obviously Ava was worthy of the halo, right? That she should have it, so she hunted her down for most of the first season. But then, when she comes back after being killed by the creature that was after Ava in the first season, or so we think, she comes back and I guess she's like slowly transforming into like this demon character. But when Father Vincent was originally on the bad side, but then kind of came around after Adriel killed the Pope, he was like, okay, this has gone a little bit too far because now Adriel's, slowly taking control. Obviously, he's having like these cult-like followers, and it's not going the way that Father Vincent had hoped it would. He thought that Adriel was going to be this savior, but truly he was just trying to take over and try to I guess push his own ideology obviously onto all of these people, and he got a little bit too overzealous with his powers, thinking that he was God when he really wasn't. So yeah, not to say that he wasn't strong, and not to say that maybe he didn't always, I shouldn't say that he always used his powers for bad, I guess, because he did resurrect the one warrior nun, but he was doing it for the wrong reasons, obviously, because he had already stolen the halo from somebody else. Or at least that's what I got, right, from the storyline, was that he had stolen the halo from somebody else from the other world and then put it into her, and then she ended up having the powers. Now, at some point, Sister, Mother Superior also had the powers for a short period of time, but then she lost the halo, and then I believe it was Shannon that had the halo, and then Shannon dies, and then it gets passed on to Ava. So it was quite a wild ride, I guess, as far as warrior nuns go, and I guess the warrior nuns never really lived. And I believe Lilith had it rejected. So I will say, though, the one action scene with Lilith where she gets tricked by Father Vincent and she's able to poof in and out of midair. Oh my god, the action scenes in this show were just absolutely violent and didn't have any business being as good as they were for the rest of the graphics wise stuff. Now I will say again, they did touch it up quite a bit in the second season as far as these graphics and CGI went for the action scenes, but that one just kind of stuck because it was she took out everybody and nobody even stood a chance against her as she was slowly transforming into this demon creature. And then of course she was on the good side, and then Adriel got to her and tried to tell her all this, filled her head with all this stuff, and she was like, okay, I guess I'm learning my true potential. But then at the very end of the show, she ends up turning back to the good side, I guess, and saying to Beatrice, I hope we can end up on the same side because now there's going to be this holy war. So it is kind of unfortunate that the show only had 2 seasons, but at least it kind of ended on I guess a little bit of a happy note, because now Beatrice can go live her life, and the sword did glow, so I'm assuming Ava is still out there somewhere alive, so at least we can leave on that kind of a high note, right, for the show. But yeah, wasn't my favorite show ever, but it wasn't, horrible. It's worth the watch for sure, at least once, I would say. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for the show, and I guess I will see you guys in the next review. Bye-bye for now.